All right, guys, real quickly, we're going to walk through taking the definite integral by hand quiz. This was quiz 4B. These grades have been posted on Plus Portals. You got to integrate and then plug in the top value, subtract what happens when you plug in the bottom value, or the upper limit minus the lower limit. The integral of 6x squared would be 6x cubed over 2, or 2x cubed, minus 4x squared over 2, or minus 2x squared. You plug a 3 in for your x values under this first part and subtract what happens when you plug in 0. Over on the left, we get 54 minus 18. On the right, we get 0 minus 0. This ends up just being 36. For question number 2, this is a little bit more complicated because it involved a fractional exponent. So the first thing I did was rewrite my integral in terms of a fractional exponent. I then, in this first step, you'll notice, in this first step, I just showed you where that becomes x to 3 halves over 3 halves. And this 2 right here comes from dividing by 3 halves is the same as multiplying by 2/3. And 3 times 2/3 is 2. So I plug 4 in wherever I see an x. And then I plug in 1 wherever I see an x. I end up getting 8 plus 16 on the left, minus the quantity 1/2 plus 2 on the right. 24 minus 2.5 is 21.5. One issue that some of you guys had when you did this is you did not distribute that negative to both quantities. You did 24 minus 1/2, and then you added 2. So you got 25.5. Remember, you got to kind of combine these. Whatever's happening here, you have to combine that first before you subtract it. If you're going to get rid of the parentheses, you've got to distribute the negative to each item that's in there. All right, for question number 3. This was a negative exponent, so the first thing I did was I pumped up the base and made that 4x to the negative 2. Remember, we add one of the exponent. The integral of 1 is x. The integral of x to the negative 2 would be x to the negative 1 over negative 1, right? So that's how I got this step here, and then I cleaned it up. You have to drop the base for this one, so it becomes x minus 4 over x. When I plug in 8 to the first half, I get 8 minus 4/8. The second half of the fundamental theorem there, I get 2 minus 4 over 2. So I basically have 8 minus 1/2 minus 0, which is 7.5. We turn to sum with trig. I gave you one of each, cosine and sine. The integral of the cosine is the sine of x. We're going from 0 to pi over 4. So we have 6 times the sine of pi over 4 minus 6 times the sine of 0. The sine of pi over 4 is radical 2 over 2. The sine of 0 is 0. 6 times 0 is 0. 6 times radical 2 over 2 is 3 radical 2. Some of you guys got all the way up to that last step and simplified incorrectly. For number 5, the integral of the sine of x is the negative cosine of x. So I have negative 10 cosine of x from 0 to pi. I plug a pi in wherever I see an x. Now, there's a lot of negatives going on. I specifically chose this because I knew there'd be a lot of negatives, and you had to really follow through with what you were doing. So I have negative 10, and the cosine of pi is negative 1. So negative 10 times negative 1 will be positive 10. Minus, I have negative 10 times positive 1 here. So that would be 10 minus negative 10, which is like saying 10 plus 10. So the final answer is 20. Hope that helps. Have a good day. Good luck on today's quiz.